Hello and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Sammy Roth.
And I'm Rosie Murphy. You have arrived at the podcast where we talk about Lost.
You have indeed arrived. This week we're watching Whatever the Case May Be, which is a Kate episode. She dives down into the lake and discovers the mysterious case, and we spend the whole episode trying to figure out what's in it.
Mm-hmm. And we learn quite a bit more about her backstory, all of which is, I think, incredibly engrossing.
It is, although she's still very, not to get ahead of ourselves, but she's still very mysterious at the end, like even more so in some ways.
Yes. Well, stay with us. We'll talk. Alrighty, Sammy, it sounds like you are just jumping at the chance to give us a hot take on this episode.
I had forgotten how good this episode was.
It's so good.
Oh
It's so good. I hope you all thought so too.
We'll talk about all the reasons we love this episode, I'm sure, but I just want to, say usually my hot takes are like, here's who I hated this episode. I'll do a different thing. Evangeline Lilly is the unsung hero of this TV show.
She's phenomenal.
She's so good, and I think that it's easy to miss that when you're going through the first time because it's like, Terry O'Quinn is so much fun as Locke, and then you get Michael Emerson and Henry Ian Cusick as Desmond, and all of these like mysterious guy characters.
Really great like character actors,
right?
Yeah.
But knowing that Matthew Fox, is not very good and does not carry this show on his own, I really think that. Well, also Naveen Andrews, who we've talked about a lot, but I really think in a really big way, I'm realizing that Evangeline Lilly carries this show and makes it work and just does amazing stuff week in, week out.
Oh yeah, on that point, the opening scene where she's climbing up in that tree, there's this incredible music. Like there's this gorgeous like orchestral music that just like immediately took me by surprise, and she just, is picking fruit, and I don't know. I agree.
The whole like first 10 minutes of this episode are just like super
they're super compelling.
But you're right, the music, Michael Giacchino, who we don't talk about
Shout
much,
out.
we should. Anyway, what's your hot take, Rosie?
So mine is about Rose, who is so wonderful. This is the first or second time that we see Rose like help somebody calm down. And she's the person who finally gets Charlie to talk. Remember, Charlie hasn't talked since he got back. And she just sits down with him and she starts talking to him, and eventually he asks, like, wasn't your husband in the tail section? And she says yes, and she believes he's still alive, and she says, I think there's a fine line between denial and faith. And Charlie just breaks down, and he cries, and she prays for him, and it's just beautiful. And, like, thank God there's somebody like Rose on this island of misfit toys who can just sort of. We've talked a few times about like how nobody is thinking about the mental and emotional health of the group, except like Hurley building the golf course. But thank goodness there's somebody like Rose who can kind of be a sage voice of comfort and wisdom for people who have gone through a trauma, like, and several traumas on top of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the thought of that Rose is finally who gets Charlie to open up and talk. It's interesting because that is the role that Jack plays for her at the beginning, that he gets her to open up and talk. But Jack has, talking about the fine line between denial and faith, Jack has totally the opposite approach where it ends with like, what do you mean your husband is still alive? Like, you gotta let go of that. He's dead.
He won't go with it at all. Yeah.
No, and so he gets her to open up, but then, she does not want to go in that direction, and she gives Charlie her own sort of version of it, which seems to work a lot better for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was just a beautiful scene.
It was when she starts to pray and the camera pans away.
Just such a good episode, you guys. Such a good episode.
Kate, let's talk
about Kate.
You said you had some thoughts about Kate and Jack that maybe you want to share.
So, I want to talk about Kate as an individual first before we talk about her in relation to the various men.
I was just eager to hear you criticize Jack.
We'll get there.
I agree with you.
We spent a lot of time not criticizing Jack on our last episode, so it's time we return to that. So Kate, like, I love this flashback. I think this is Kate
Agreed.
At her best in her duties as a bank robber. Like, even in that, she plays the part of the photographer or whatever so well. Like, we find out she's orchestrated this whole robbery to break into this safety deposit box. And then in the vault, she just snaps because they're going to kill an innocent man. And she just has no mercy. And it's like shocking.
She shoots a bunch of people to save the life of the guy who she's robbing.
Well, she shoots her own team.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so unexpected.
To save the life of the guy that she's robbing in order to she's trying to get that little plane. Right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting because it's like she's realized in the flashback that like I feel like Kate, her motivation is like that the ends are justifying the means here. And so she really wants this thing and she needs this thing for her own peace of mind. And she's willing to rob a bank to do it, but no one's going to get hurt. But then when it comes to someone getting hurt, she's willing to expend her team, who are arguably the worst people here. And like, you know, not the innocent people. Despite clearly like having a relationship with one of them, which we see.
It's a very powerful moral code that I don't think we had any reason, based on what we know about Kate on the island, to think that she would have.
Yeah.
And I was also surprised by the sentimentality that the toy airplane, what she was willing to do that for. Like, also something that I wouldn't have expected from Kate, based on what we know about her so far.
Right.
That she was willing to go through all that trouble for this, clearly...
Like, token of...
Yeah, a memento of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end when she's talking to Jack and she says, it belonged to the man I loved, it belonged to the man I loved, it belonged to the man I killed, we don't know who that is at this point.
Right.
And we know that she's killed other people because we just saw her do it in a flashback.
Did she kill any of them?
It's unclear.
Yeah. But we know that she was wanted by the marshal for murder, I think.
Right. And we don't know all of that yet. But clearly she loved and killed someone who she loved and is very much broken up about it.
Yeah.
So she's not, despite being like super decisive and willing to take like dramatic action, including shooting people, like she's clearly not heartless and not this like machine killer kind of.
I thought it was ambiguous when she said it belonged to the man I loved, it belonged to the man I killed. I thought it was ambiguous whether both of those things were true or whether the first one was a lie. I mean, later we learn it, but I think it's left open here. Like, maybe it was just someone she killed and felt bad about.
Well, because Jack clearly doesn't believe her.
Right, he says, "Stop lying to me. Stop lying to me."
Which, I'm okay. I can't hold back anymore.
Go for it.
Why the fuck does Jack think he has a right to this information?
Yes.
Like, why? What does Kate owe him? Like, this whole episode is just persistently like demanding that she let him in on these secrets, that she share information with him, that she, like, is it because he's kept her secret because he knows that she was the criminal who the marshal was traveling with? Like, why does he think that he has this power over her and that she owes him any of this?
That is an excellent question.
Because it makes me very angry.
That has a not good answer for Jack, I think.
Yeah, like, if it is only because he's kept her secret, then that's, like, low-key blackmail, right? Uh-huh. That's just, well, hey, I did this thing for you, and so you're going to tell me whatever I want to know. And we see this a lot, like, people, I think in this episode and in the following one, people approaching Jack and saying, like, Hurley says to him at one point, like, anything I tell you is, like, doctor-patient confidential, right? And Jack's like, sure. And Hurley goes on to tell him something that has nothing to do with his body.
No, it was that he was having, like, bad diarrhea.
Oh, that's right. That's in the next episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But yeah, like, why does Jack think he has this kind of power over Kate?
I don't know. I think that Jack, clearly has feelings for Kate at this point and is not treating her well at all as a result of it.
No, he, like, has no respect for her. Like, he's just demanding that she do what he wants her to do.
And the bit where he goes to Sawyer and threatens to take his medicine away if Sawyer doesn't give up the case, like, I was also disturbed by that. It's sort of the flip side of how he's treating Kate. It's like, dude, I get that you want to help her get the case back, but it is not fair for you to go around threatening people's health because you think it's going to, win you some kind of favor with Kate. Like, not cool.
Is that why he does that, or does he do it because he doesn't want Sawyer to get the guns?
Sawyer can't open the case.
That's true, despite trying. Also, the scene where Sawyer tries to drop it from the tree and then Kate sneaks in and grabs it.
And she's just been following him.
It's just hilarious and outstanding.
It truly is.
But, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not clear, because Kate tells him there are guns in it. And, like, he almost doesn't care. He starts saying immediately, like, what else is in the case?
Right. Because he just creepily wants to know everything about her. Which Sawyer does, too.
But at least Sawyer is honest about it. Yeah. Like, Sawyer is a creep in this episode, but, like, he's a
southern pervert, as Kate calls him.
He's a forthright creep.
Yes.
Like, he's, he makes no bones about what his intentions are.
And Kate also seems way more interested in him than she
Oh my
does
god,
Jack.
Kate and Sawyer have so much chemistry, people. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. That's why the first 10 minutes of the episode
are so good.
It's just Kate and Sawyer hanging out.
They're both so funny. They both play off of each other so well, both as actors and as characters, I think. And, like, goddamn, what might have been.
And then we have to watch Jack interrogate her.
Yeah, Yeah, how the hell do Kate... I'm sorry I'm yelling so much. I just feel very strongly
We'll
about
turn the
this.
audio levels down later.
How in the hell is it Jack and Kate who end up together when Jack is
Excellent
such an ass
question.
to her? Like, what? I mean, we'll get into that many, many other additional times. But I just don't get it. I don't get it, Kate.
It kind of seems like the only reason Jack and Kate end up together is because Sawyer ends up with Juliet.
That's true. Who is wonderful.
And they're great also. But if Juliet is not in the picture, I have trouble seeing how they would have explained a Jack and Kate pairing.
Yeah. All of the Kate and Sawyer scenes in this episode are great. Mostly because they're kind of evenly matched.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Like, even physically, they're pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Kate's able to fight him.
Each other.
Yeah. It's fun to see her, like, go up against somebody who is, like, a fair fight for her. Like, because the only other person she ever argues with is Jack, who just, like, is not on the level. Hers or anyone's. But anyway.
I was just remembering the scene in the pilot where Sawyer picks the gun, or Kate picks the gun off of Sawyer.
That's right.
It makes me wonder if that's part of the attraction for Sawyer too, that he sees like, oh, she is kind of a match for me.
Right.
Because he sees that from the beginning.
Right. And he doesn't know what her backstory is, but is clearly, yes, very curious about it.
But he also like has an understanding of her, I think. And I was really struck by the moment in this episode where after Sawyer, acquiesces and gives Jack the case, Sawyer says to him, whatever she's telling you, she's lying.
Yeah.
I mean, spot on, Sawyer.
Yeah.
That's just her modus operandi, and he gets that because that's him too.
They're so good. And then there's at the end when they dig up the marshal's body, which is dark.
Oof.
And then Kate tries to slip the key out of the wallet without Jack seeing, which I just wish she had succeeded in doing.
Yeah,
'cause
same.
Jack is such a dick about it. That was some real good sleight of hand, Kate. Like, why do you have to be an ass? Why? I'm sorry. He just grinds my gears.
Do you have any hindsights?
I do want to talk about Rousseau's maps a
please.
little bit. What are they?
I don't think that's ever...
It's not ever really...
Except... You're right, it's never explained.
And why at the beginning does Jack tell Saeed that he wants to go see Rousseau?
Because he thinks that Rousseau can help them find the others who have...
That's
he
right.
thinks have.
That's right.
I think this was the first time we heard the notation others, maybe. Because Jack said she told you there were
others.
Others on this island.
Well, Rousseau is the one who used the term others.
Did she?
Because, Rousseau said it, and then Saeed repeated it, and now that's just become the moniker, I think.
Well, it was fun to hear it.
But you're right, because they haven't become, like,
others.
capital T, capital O, the others yet.
They have not.
Oh, but I can't wait until they do. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer that, like, nothing comes of all that stuff that Saeed took from Rousseau. Because that was a whole big thing a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, you're right.
And it turns out to just be, like, the ramblings of a semi-crazy woman, which, fair enough.
And a mediocre Shannon Saeed plot device.
Ugh.
Okay. We're going to talk some more. Next week is a Boone and Shannon episode, and we'll have some real thoughts about them.
Yes.
And Saeed.
I just want to state for the record that I take Andrea Gabriel's side in that I do not...
Oh, yes.
It also irked me a little bit when it was Shannon in the church and not her, but...
Okay,
that's just me.
I'm with you. Although we had that caller last week who
who made a really good point. Made a really good point.
I don't know.
Shout out to you, caller.
Anyway, let's. Do you want to get to the interview?
Yeah.
So we've got some more with David Fury. We introduced him. Was it last week? Yeah, we introduced him to you last week. He was a writer and producer on season 1. He did Walkabout. He did Solitary, and then a couple episodes from now we'll hear more. He did Special and Numbers. And this part of the interview is going to start right after he's told me that when they asked him to work on Lost originally, they wouldn't even give him the script for the pilot. And I asked him why that is.
The thing was rushed very quickly from outline to script to production. Ridiculously so. Most development for new shows takes months and months and months. And this was in a matter of weeks. This was a pet project over at ABC. And it went from outline to script to greenlit to go and produce it, as my understanding, in a matter of like 6 weeks or some ridiculous amount of weeks. So they almost didn't even know what they had. I mean, certainly Damon was still growing to figure out what the show was. He was still, when I first started working with him, it was very clear that the whole thing had happened so fast they hadn't figured stuff out yet. And all they were able to figure out was the pilot. And they threw a lot of interesting ideas. some of which they had no idea what to do with it after the pilot. So consequently, they weren't giving out. They were just being very. This is a very JJ thing anyway. I mean, JJ is very protective and secretive with any kind of scripts.
Right.
And certainly now he's in the feature world, and he makes sure his, the Star Trek or the Star Wars scripts don't leak, and he's just very, 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 very protective. And Lost was no exception. He just wanted to keep this air of mystery about it. It's part of what makes JJ is he's a showman. And once your stuff gets out there, once people are there to disseminate it and discuss it, it loses all its mystery and coolness. So he tries to keep everybody guessing. So his office itself, not to go into too much details, but the office for Bad Robot, his company, you wouldn't know it. It was an office building for a television company. It's completely disguised. It has a nondescript empty door, and it just has a button next to the door that says, "Are you ready?" That's all it does. So that's the showmanship of JJ. He doesn't, he doesn't make it easy for you to know what it's going to be, because he loves the mystery. He loves magic, and that's so much part of what magic is. He's an amateur magician, or he might call himself a semi-pro. I don't know, but that's just in his nature. So they weren't showing scripts, they weren't showing pilots, yet they still wanted you to work on it. So it was a weird situation, but we managed to get around it.
So they finally show you the pilot, you sign on. I know what a writer does. What did you do as a co-executive producer, if you could just explain that briefly?
It doesn't necessarily entail more responsibility apart from writing. In this case, it was going to. And I can tell you, I didn't know that at the time. My understanding at the time was, when I met with JJ and Damon, was that they were going to run the show, and I was going to be like the number 2 or number 3 on the show to help run the rooms, with the writers, help break stories and that kind of thing. But it became very apparent very quickly that I think Damon was leaning on me to be more of his right hand in the show. And the unfortunate thing was I had just had children. I'd had twin boys who were virtually infants at the time, and a daughter was a toddler. And I had told JJ and Damon that they said, "What do you want to do in the show? You can do anything you want. What do you want to do?" And there were options like direct and all that stuff. But at the time, my priorities were I wanted to be home for dinner. I didn't want to be working late into the hours kind of thing. I wanted to be home with my family. So I made it really clear from the beginning that that's kind of my role on the show. I would come in, work a full day hard. I would write whatever they needed, but I needed to be home for dinner. And that's not really conducive to a co-showrunner or right hand to the showrunner kind of deal. So that's the reason that eventually Carlton was brought onto the show.
Right.
Carlton Cuse was brought on about 8 episodes into the first season. When we were in the middle of writing the 8th episode, he was brought in to basically fill that role that I couldn't.
Was that why you left after the first season? Just difficult with the new family and everything?
Yeah, that's really it. It's that what I needed to be doing on the show I couldn't be doing.
Well, did you keep watching after you left the show to see if they kind of stuck the landing on this stuff?
I watched the second season, and I would occasionally write to Damon about it, and and comment on it, and we talk about it. But I didn't go beyond the second season.
Okay.
At some point, I just felt like it was no longer, in my purview. I couldn't affect what's going on, so it became I think it became a little frustrating for me to watch it and think like, oh, gee, I wish I'd been there, because I would have liked to have played, and I would have liked to have gone a different direction here,
Well, anyway, last question. What are you working on now?
I am co-showrunner on a reboot of The Tick. I don't know if you remember, there was a show called The Tick back in the early, you might be too young for this, back in the early 2000s with Patrick Warburton. He's a superhero.
No, not too young for it, but I don't remember it, unfortunately.
Okay, big blue guy. It's a comedy. It's a parody. It's kind of a parody superhero show. It's premiering August 25th. I'm doing it with the creator of the original comic, Ben Edlund, who we worked together on Angel back in the day, and that's it. and we're going to be very all over Comic-Con. I think you'll be hearing more about it over the next few days. Anyway, that's it for Amazon Prime. The Tick dropping August 25th.
The Tick, August 25th. Well, David, thanks very much for talking to us on The Hatch. We really appreciate it.
You bet, Sammy.
So yeah, I personally did not know that David Fury was supposed to be like the, sort of the number 2 guy after Damon. I mean, he refers to the number 3 guy, but then JJ leaves eventually,
Right.
Of course. And so yeah, I mean, everyone knows Damon and Carlton, but I guess Damon and David, if he hadn't had kids.
Could have been a thing.
Yeah, and I don't know, David Fury is like a little bit controversial, I have found, revisiting the show, because some of the comments that he made to us, in the first week of the interview, and that he's made elsewhere about, how they didn't know certain things and were making it up as they go along to an extent. Like, there's been a little bit of a backlash to that among some Lost fans that I have received some of on Twitter and Reddit recently. Of just like, no, that's not true. It contradicts what everyone else says. They knew a bunch of things, and I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there.
No, it's not true to say they knew nothing, right? But it's not true to say they knew everything.
No, and so I find it interesting that he stirs up that debate. It seems.
Well, it's interesting because Javier Grillo Marxwatch said a lot of those same things.
I thought so as well.
But hey, in that case, I guess we just need to talk to someone who will tell us, like, nope, we knew.
Damon Lindelof, Carlton Cuse, if you guys are listening, please come on our show.
9546 Dharma.
We get a hot take one day. Hey, this is Damon, was listening to your show. Probably wouldn't believe it.
No, and that goes for the listeners too. If you guys have read or heard anything or remember anything from the time Lost was on, again, like, I've said this before. I'm of the opinion that it doesn't totally matter what they knew and when they knew it and what they didn't know and when they figured it out, because it's still, the show becomes the show regardless.
I am of that opinion for everything except who is in the Outrigger, which they should have goddamn told us. But anyway.
What?
The Outrigger in season 5 when they're jumping through time and there's the Outrigger that's shooting at them, and we never find that's the only one.
I
that
totally
still drives
forgot
me
that
crazy.
happened.
Everything else I'm cool with.
Okay.
Anyway.
I forgot that happened.
We'll be back next week. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/thehatch.
Oh, do we want to tease what happens next week?
Do we want to? Oh, gosh, we do.
So next week, we're really excited about this. We have 2 former Lost bloggers joining us, Jen Chaney and Liz Kelly Nelson, who wrote a weekly blog for the Washington Post during season 3 through 6.
They did the celebritology blog and wrote about Lost week in, week out. We think probably many of you would have read them at the time.
Yeah, we convinced them to both watch an episode of Lost for the first time in 7 years. And so they watched Hearts and Minds, and will be on our show next week.
We made them watch Boone and Shannon.
Yeah. Our apologies. No, just kidding. Wow, great discussion. Looking forward to sharing that with you all.
It'll be fun.
In the meantime, of course...
Sorry, I jumped the gun. Yes,
that's okay.
We're on Twitter, twitter.com/thehatchpodcast, facebook.com/thehatchpodcast. Come find us.
Yes, if you are Damon Lindelof, or if you are just a viewer like us, give us a call, 9546-DHARMA. Leave us your hot take. Those do cut off after 3 minutes, so if you have a lot to say... just bear that in mind.
Also, please rate, review us on iTunes. Helps more people find the show. We'd really appreciate that.
Yes, it has been a pleasure talking about this, as always.
Our theme music is by Andy G. Cohen.
You're right.
Always credit.
Also, our cover art is by Danny Roth.
Namaste.